Pretty full house today. Unusual for a Board of Ed meeting. Pleasure to see so many people here today.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the February regular meeting of the Board of Education. We have a quorum. We will begin with introduction of visitors, comments. Some of the people are here for presentations, so we don't have to say them, but other members of the audience that should be recognized. Of course, maybe you don't know.
Well, good evening, everybody. My plane has landed, and I'm now here permanently, so it's good to be here. Noticing in the audience, we have Pat Fedor representing our administrators. In the back, we have Martha Shoemaker, as well as Linda Braley, recognizing our classroom teachers. We have the media here, Paul and Steve, and Bernie, town treasurer, able and ready on camera. And I think also Alan's here from the building committee, as well as Board of Finance liaison. And we have such a great crowd, I can't pick everybody else out.
If you weren't mentioned, it isn't because we are ignoring you. Okay. At this point, are there any comments from the public on issues that are not on tonight's agenda? Bernie.
I would just like to remind the audience and the board about the power of women. After long, sustained efforts to get drawings for the Friendship School, we had Jody Nasarchik and Rudy Beers assigned to the task. And within 1 week, we got results. We got the drawings and a CD of the drawings, and I'd like to thank Jody and Rudy Beers for that effort. And we are proceeding on communicating with the company to proceed on this solar energy project to see if it's feasible. So thank you very much, Jody.
Oh, you're welcome. We have to thank Tom Wagner, too.
And Tom Wagner, right.
Thank you for your work on that. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Yes, Renee. Go ahead.
Paula Bassett.
Could you identify yourself?
We're 7th grade tag students from Parkland Middle School.
Thank you.
Alright, well, we're looking at the issue of that tag is going to be cut in middle school, and we have some comments on that, why we think it should be cut.
Okay. Waterford prides itself in meeting every child's academic needs, but this will not be true if tag is cut. There are multiple programs for kids who are below average, but tag is the only program for overachievers. Without this program, tag students will be stuck at a slow pace, even though they could move at a faster rate. Cutting this program will be pushing kids into a lower class, while we should be trying to get kids in higher classes. TAG is preparing us for high school, which is preparing us for college, and which is preparing us for life.
Time and time again we hear from the president, the media, teachers, family, and friends that the future of our country lies in the hands of our youth. The United States is behind in both math and science compared to other countries. At Clark Lane, the TAG program focuses on math and science. TAG students learn regular grade-level curriculum at an accelerated pace, leaving time to learn more advanced concepts. I believe that the Waterford School District should not eliminate its TAG programs. Waterford is, along with other schools in our country, should make serving the high-potential students a priority. By eliminating programs such as TAG, the message our town is sending out is that it's okay to be just average. With the No Child Left Behind Act and Connecticut's policy to identify tag students, but not requiring special services for them. The student that strives to excel and push for higher learning is being neglected. When faced with tough economic times, educating our youth should remain our main priority. I urge the Board of Ed to look elsewhere for budget cuts. In conclusion, I'd like to leave you with this one thought. Cutting this program is not only affecting Waterford's youth, it's also affecting the future of our country.
And although she said that's the last one I saw. Sorry. And I just want to point out that it's not just our town that's cutting in education, it's the whole country. And in Canada, 15-year-olds are more than one school year ahead of their U.S. peers in math, and more than half a school year ahead in reading and science, said the reporter released hours after President Barack Obama urged Americans not to rein in education funding, even in a tough economy. And also, not to quote you too much, Mr. Belair, but
Good research.
yeah, we did a lot. But an article in the newspaper called Meet Superintendent Get to Know Jerry Belair. There's the first paragraph says, "What are you reading? What's on the nightstand?" It says, "It's Bill Russell writing about Red Auerbach and the relationship between Bill and Red, and what drove them. It was about providing the freedom and opportunities to shine. It was about trusting the talent around them versus being in control. My job is to inspire others to do things they wouldn't normally do, to really stretch themselves." And then we had some other quotes, sorry. The Waterford Public Schools are committed to providing a challenging curriculum, skilled instruction, and learning environment that responds to individual student academic needs.
We believe that if you cut tag, it's like the reverse of No Child Left Behind.
It's like you're not letting us excel. You're forcing us to stay where we are. Stay average and not be able to get ahead than the others just because we learn faster. And everyone's the same. The world's not the world we have today. And also we set challenges and demanding expectations for performance and support all students to achieve high standards. But we can't set high standards if you don't give us things we need to achieve. If we don't get the opportunities to achieve high standards, because we learn faster because we're all 7th grade tag students. We learn much faster than the other students in a regular science class. And we only have one trimester of tag, but in the other 2 trimesters, we become bored because we're just going over the same things over and over after we already know it. After we've already learned it and we try to understand it.
Some other articles and stuff include that we do have the different math courses that are offered, such as like algebra, pre-algebra, geometry, and that stuff, but there's a difference between math and science.
They're related, but they're not the same. And the U.S. probably is one of the, if not the most advanced country in the world, and we're not even in the top 10 countries spending the most on education. So how can we expect to stay at the top if we're not helping the future?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are and will be thinking about all of those issues. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to follow up. Father of one of these 4 young ladies. I am very proud of them for doing all the research that they did. But also I wanted to mention, as one of them alluded to, the tag class that they did in elementary school. Tag in elementary schools focused on advanced math, and middle schools focused on advanced science. That advanced math helped prepare them for the algebra class that they are in now. If you take that away, there are going to be fewer students prepared for that advanced math class going forward. Same thing with the science. There's going to be fewer students prepared in high school for the advanced science. And math and science, I understand it is a challenging budget time, and you've got a difficult job and some difficult decisions to make. But reading, writing, math, and science are the core of what these kids are supposed to be learning. and those areas should not be cut at the expense of some things that are nice to have, because math and science are things that they must have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Any other comments? Okay. If there are no other public comments, we'll move on. We have some presentations
We
tonight.
do, and the first student that we'd like to recognize comes from Clark Lane Middle School, and I'd like to have Michael Levetri, the principal, introduce the student.
I have a very special presentation for a very special person, and one that's quite a high achiever. Let me tell you a little bit about Robert Cow. First of all, he came from Quaker Hill, and he skipped right into our 7th grade this year. And we were trying to figure out what math to put him in, because he was very advanced in math. So we placed him in algebra and geometry. So he's taken two high school courses as a 7th grader who's only 11 years old. And after a couple of months, my teacher came to me and said, "Look, he really knows all the algebra. I'm not sure what we're going to continue to do." And she was trying to keep him advanced. So I said, "Well, let's get the high school final, the Algebra 1 final, and give him the Algebra 1 final." So Robert took the Algebra 1 final, and he got a 93 on it, if I'm not mistaken. So then we were still a little nervous about where we should place him. So I said, let's get the Algebra 2 final. Now, Algebra 2 is a junior level course, really tough course. He didn't even know he was getting it. Cold, walked in, handed it to him, and he got a 92. So right now, Robert's, we just got him enrolled for the 2nd semester in the virtual high school class. He's taking pre-calculus right now. So that's just a prelude to what Robert's done. So a couple weekends ago, they had the math counts competition. It was at the Coast Guard Academy, and there was 186 competitors. We had 2 teams there. Out of 28 teams, one of our teams finished 6th. Robert was on that team, but Robert actually won the entire competition. Out of the 186 competitors there, of all middle school students. Remember, he's 11, and we had lots of students there in the 8th grade. He finished first, not only in the all-around individual, but in the actually, I got to get the right name for it now, in the countdown round, which puts the top 8 competitors of the whole thing against each other. And Robert came out number 1 in that also. So we are tremendously proud. Actually, the trophies just came in. The individual trophies just came in, so I'm going to present those to you tonight. The first place in the countdown round, the first place individual. We're really proud of you. Congratulations. Robert's here with his dad, Mr. Cow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. That's great. We also have a second recognition, and we have some high school students who participated in a science competition, and I'd ask Principal Don Macrino to introduce them.
Thank you. I'll have Mike O'Connor come up, and he'll give you a background, but I just would like to say that we're very proud of our science department. It's a very progressive department. They understand rigor, and they stick to it, and they press our students beyond just the walls of Waterford High School. And we have several science teams, and he'll explain those to you in just a moment, that go to regional competitions. And we've been creeping up the ladder of success over the past several years, and we've done particularly well this year. So Mike will share the details and introduce some of our students who participate on those teams.
Well, first I'd like to thank you for taking the time to recognize these guys. We've got some of the top science students in the high school who all have been working very hard for, some of them, 4 years steady on some of these competitions. The one that we're called here for official recognition is the Ocean Science Bowl. And we've got 3 of our 5 members here. The Ocean Science Bowl, it's a regional competition. It's a part of a national competition. We're one of 18 regions. There are 16 teams in our region. We have placed second place 7 times now. And this year it was basically by one question and bonus. We're gonna give you a little taste in a few minutes about how the competition goes. And we have 3 seniors here who were a big part of that competition. 2 of the other students are already off on vacation, so couldn't make it today. So I'm going to introduce you to them and then talk a little bit about some of our other competitions, and then we'll mix in some of the other kids, and they want to challenge you in a little Waterford Bowl competition by the Ocean Science Bowl format. So our 3 students from the Ocean Science Bowl that are here are Bing Zhao, Greg Cronish, and Megan Dim. And these are 3 seniors, Bing and Greg, who have been involved for just about 4 years solid, and Megan on her 2nd year, have done a fantastic job on the Ocean Science Bowl. And with the exception of the one team that has been a 6-time national champion and just beat them by 1 question, these guys really would be top in the country, or at least up there in the cream of the crop. So if you guys want to come up, we've got awards for you 3.
Yeah. We've got these certificates for you.
You can, Greg.
You can give that to
Congratulations, Greg.
And you have Megan. Okay. Way to go. Congratulations. Nice work. Greg, congratulations.
And I didn't bring the trophy, but they got a nice 2nd place big Bristol trophy. Each of them got a $150 scholarship, which was a check made out to them. You've got iTunes cards for a certain amount. We get to do an overnight on one of the boats at Mystic. We've got a researcher for a day program that they won at Mystic Aquarium, and over the last few years they've had a few other experiences related to the program that have been pretty special experiences. Some of the other groups that I'd like to recognize, because Mr. Macrino gave me an inch, so I thought it'd take a little more. And I thought you would want to know about some of these other ones. We've got the General Science Bowl, which we haven't been doing as long as we have for the Ocean Bowl, and Mr. Todd Kane is here, who is coaching the Science Bowl. Last year was our best placement in that. We came in 4th out of New England's and 30 teams, 32 teams. And they were very close and very competitive with the final 3 teams. That team was mostly made up of seniors, but we've got Bing is going to be on the team, John Stockman, Mike Nicky Fortune, and Greg, maybe. So these guys are going to be going at the end of March and competing again in the New Englands, and I think we've got a pretty good chance this year. They've been working very, very hard. We started 5 years ago. We started in on Science Olympiad. We had a great group of science students that had been doing these bowls, and we said, what else can we get them interested in, because they just wanted more and more. And Science Olympiad covers about 25 different subjects, and some of them are construction subjects, some of them are straight sit down, have a paper test, some of them are lab activities, practical tests. And over the last 4 years, we've started, as Mr. Macrino said, started to creep up. We were in 7th place last year at the New England Regional, and we've had some individual success much better than that. Greg is the reigning herpetology champion in New England. He got silver as a freshman and gold as a sophomore, They change the subjects up from year to year, otherwise he'd be a 4-time repeater and medaling in that. Phil Minicino was second place his freshman year in the rocketry competition, and last year Ben Yao took the silver in the rocketry competition. We've had seniors from last year who took gold in anatomy. We've had Dynamic Planet, which is in their science competition. We had gold. We've had a number of bronzes and a lot of fourth place finishes. This year we've got almost 30 students involved. We're going to put 2 teams in. We ought to have enough kids to fill out all the competitions and be able to improve our placement as a team. And the last competition is our Chem Olympiad. Diane Holmberg is here. She's our chemistry teacher and takes kids to the regional chemistry Olympiad. And we have Matt Zimmer here and John Stockman, who both scored in the top, what percentage would you say? Top 10% in the region. We had another student, Eric Culp, who was the top scorer in the region in chemistry. What's that? Top scorer in Connecticut. So we have some great successes that we wanted to share with you. And if anyone had questions about those competitions, then anybody here can answer them now, or we can go on and do our simulated Waterford Bowl for a few minutes if you'd like.
I think we're warmed up and ready.
All right. You guys want to help me just pass out the buzzers still?
They're white. Well, the subject matter is the town of Waterford. There was one that we'll do 4 across.
Counting on you, Tim.
Don't ring in unless you don't. Okay, so while these guys get settled, let me just familiarize everybody with the rules. The way the competition goes, there's 3 separate types of questions. There are toss-up questions where the first person in blocks out everyone else on the buzzer system. The buzzer system, which was purchased with grant money from the Waterford Education Foundation, by the way. And that person needs to get recognized by the moderator, and then they get a chance to answer. If they answer correctly, then their team wins the opportunity to answer a bonus question. The toss-up question is 4 points. Bonus question will be 6 points. You can confer. You've got 20 seconds to confer on that bonus question and come up with an answer. If they miss, then the buzzer system will be cleared, and the other team will have a chance to ring it. You can't, on buzzer questions, talk to each other. It has to be an individual. On the bonus questions, you can talk. So at the competition for the Ocean Science Bowl and the General Science Bowl, you go through a 6-minute round of these buzzer questions. At the Ocean Science Bowl, it's a little different than the General. At the end of that 6-minute round, there's a challenge question, which can be interpreting graphs, identifying organisms, anything that has to do with the ocean can be made a challenge question. And they tend to be 3 to 5 minutes long. Now, I thought it was unfair to have ocean topic questions thrown to you, so I came up with questions about Waterford School District, the town itself. So hopefully it's a relatively level playing field. So we'll do one short buzzer round with follow-up bonus questions, and then I have one challenge question that we'll do. Mr. Kane will run the buzzer system, and do you want to keep score, or should we keep it a friendly match?
I'll keep score.
Okay. All right. Mr. Kane will keep it, and he'll keep it in his head so nobody knows if we're cheating or not.
That I have power to edit the tape before it goes public.
Sure. Okay. Ready? All right. And if you want to do a buzzer check for everybody? And
Sure.
We'll start with white 1 over here. White 2, 3, 4, 5. Push the red button. All right, and it is about buzzer speed.
All right, hands on it. Ready?
All right. So the way that I'll do this is I will read and say toss up, and whether it's multiple choice or short answer, and the general topic that it's about. You guys ready? Sure. Okay. You're ganging up on them? All right. Okay. Toss up multiple choice. Social. Rounding to the nearest 1,000, how many people live in Waterford? Okay. White 3.
1,000?
And I'm sorry, but that's incorrect. Red 4.
22,000?
Okay. And this gets to the point of some of the strategy in competition. It's multiple choice. So sometimes it pays to listen to choices. So the correct answer, rounding to the nearest 1,000, was 19,000. Very close. Okay.
You should have hit it.
Oh, sorry, I don't want my back. Okay. Okay, so second toss-up question, multiple choice, geography. What is the approximate square mile acreage of Waterford? W, 100, X, 75, Y, 30, white 3 again.
Oh, I should have listened to the yes, but 35 square miles?
Approximate would be, I'll take the approximate of 35. So we're rounding, and I think it's like 33 or 34. So yeah, it's close to 35. Now at the competition, in terms of buzzing in and saying either the letter or the number, we train the kids to say the number specifically or the letter specifically. So W, X, Y, or Z. Because they've gotten really tight about not allowing any deviation from numbers. But we're not there. So we got 4 points and a bonus for the white team. Okay. You can talk about this. What river marks the southwest boundary of Waterford? You get to talk with your group, and then we will say the captain of the group is Mr. Blevins in the middle here.
Okay, the Niantic River.
Niantic River is correct. They get the bonus points. All right. 6. Okay. So, next toss-up, multiple choice education. Approximately, how many students attend Waterford High School? W, 500, X, 700, Y, 900, Z, 1,000. Red 1?
Z.
Z is correct.
900
what?
995.
It depends from day to day. All right. Bonus. What is the name of the high school yearbook?
Who's the captain?
That's the frustrating part. Excalibur is correct. All right. Toss up multiple choice education. How many board members are on the Waterford Board of Ed? White 2. 9 is correct. And your bonus. How often does the full board meet publicly? Captain can answer this.
One time a month.
One time a month is correct.
That's math, not science.
All right, toss-up multiple choice policy. How many days does the state of Connecticut require school districts to be in session for the school year? White 3.
180.
180 is correct. And your bonus question, which of the following ways cannot be used to make up school days missed due to weather closing? W, holding school on legal holidays. X, canceling school vacations. Y, holding school on Saturday. Or Z, having school past June 30th. Which of the following cannot be used?
There's three that can't be used.
Saturdays. It's possible that there's more than one correct answer.
Saturdays, legal holidays, and
Ooh, that's rough. Don, you got it?
Yeah. Past June 30th is definitely one of them. Saturdays is the other. Holidays, I'm not so sure about legal holidays. I think you can arrange to have a meaningful program if you decide to hold school on that holiday. You can't go past June 30th and you can't go on Saturday.
So you're going with those two?
Yeah.
And that is correct. Yeah, and there was a thing on the Board of Ed's, State Board of Ed's website talking about the legal holidays. Okay. Toss up. Multiple choice administration. Name the current assistant superintendent of schools. Like 3.
Oh, we should have waited to make sure.
It was multiple choice, but again, one of the things about getting in terms of winning the competition is when you know it and you're sure of it, you've got to go right away.
Craig Powers.
Craig Powers is correct. Okay. And your bonus, name 2 past holders of this position.
David Title.
Dennis Kern.
Dennis Kern. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, David Title and Dennis Kern.
Correct again. It's a landslide. All right. Okay. Toss up, multiple choice, education. What was the last play put on by Waterford Drama? Red 2.
Our Town?
Our Town is correct. Okay, and your bonus is a multiple choice. How many clubs are there at Waterford High School? W10, X17, Y22, or Z46?
What's this on June?
22 is correct. All right, so that is our buzzer round. Now we're moving on. I'm going to give you one challenge question, and we'll total up after the challenge question and see who wins. No, the challenge question, usually they give between 2 and 5 minutes. It is a question where it can be interpreting graphs. One of the last ones that they had was pictures of organisms where they had to match scientific names to different organisms. They were given too many scientific names and had to narrow it down. So I modeled that one, and I have pictures here that need to be identified. You can't turn the pictures over until we say go. And I'm going to give you, let's say I'll give you 45 seconds. All right, you need longer? How about, okay, we're in paper shortage, yeah.
Is this a
group? Here, we've got a couple. This is group. So you all get to look and contribute. And we'll give it 2 minutes. How about that? Okay, and go.
What?
No.
Oh boy. No. I like Jody.
So normally at the competition at this point, we'd have an overhead. It would be projected against the wall. And
I don't know.
this, see if I can. And if you guys want to pass that around and see the challenge competition.
Yes. Oh, look at that. Yes.
You've got 40 seconds left, and then you got sure. All right, let's make it.
So you don't buzz.
15 seconds left.
We're buzzing. We got unhooked.
Thank you. Each person's 5 points. Okay. You lose. All right.
Hey, Doc.
All right, hands down. Ready? Okay. So you guys have a final copy?
Yep.
All right. So normally there'd be 2 of these. We would grab the judge would grab from the captain each of the finals. They go to another room, grade. We get a 2-minute break, and then go back to the buzzers for the end and see what happens. So here we will.
You better draw arrows.
No, we got it. So here we've got 4 pictures of 4 current Waterford employees. They are also post-grads of Waterford High School. And the first one is actually in the room, and the board got it correct. Mike Levetri. And the students thought it was Mr. Macrino.
That was our second choice.
The second one, the board also got correct, which was Mr. Perry, math teacher at the high school. And the students thought it was Mr. Gear. And the third one, our first selectman, Dan Stewart. The students got correct, and the board thought was Jay Miner. So, and the last one, both groups got correct, which was Mr. Ryan from our Dean of Students from the high school. Okay, so for score purposes, we've got 15 points for the board, 5 points for the students. 5, yeah. So. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. You got 2. You got Mr. Stewart and Mr. Ryan. So 15 to 10. So 55 to 30 is our final score, with the board coming out victorious. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
And you just always see here and look pretty good.
I think we can leave them there. Some of the people are going to move up.
Yeah. We will take a very short pause here for people who were here for the presentation. We're also going to have a presentation on the high school project that the students may, I'm sure, have a lot of homework to do. Their high school. What independent over excess acceleration or content. Okay, we'll proceed.
Okay, I just want to kind of wrap that up by just acknowledging all the staff that coordinate and organize those activities for our students, because quite frankly, without them organizing these activities, the kids wouldn't have these opportunities. So kudos to our staff for doing that. Greatly appreciated. We also have Rich Muckle, who just joined us, RTM representative, so he's here this evening. And we're going to spend some time with an update to the board, and I think it will also be very beneficial to me as well, to take a look at where we are with the high school construction project, and if you could give us an update. So we have both Gus Cote from O&G as well as Jim Hoagland from our architectural firm. So good evening.
Thank you. And I am Jim Hoagland. I'm a senior associate with JCJ. Excuse me. And I've been involved with the project right from the beginning. In our office, it has an 07 job number, which means we've been at this for almost 4 years. So it's been a long haul. You can see some dirt moving out on site out there, so things are beginning to happen. But we were asked to come back and just kind of give a quick overview. So I'd like to step back in time a little bit to kind of explain where we started, some of the philosophies that we instilled in the project very early on in the process. And then where we are today. And I think Gus will probably go into some more detail about some of the construction phasing that's beginning to happen right now and what the next year or 2 years is going to look like on site. Also with me is Bill Ailes from JCJ. He's going to be our construction administrator out here. He's going to be overseeing a lot of the activity that goes on. And he's intimately familiar with some of the recent issues that have surfaced and are ongoing right now. So I'll try to keep it fairly short, do an overview, and then we'll get into any questions that you guys would like to ask towards the end. Stepping back, 4 years ago or so, we began with a study of the existing high school. We did an analysis of what was out there, what was working, what wasn't working from an educational standpoint, as well as a facility standpoint. We reached the conclusion that a lot of the physical facilities out there were not supporting the learning environment that the administrators wanted, the teachers wanted, and the town really wanted. It was the last piece of the puzzle. All the other schools have been renovated, brought up to current codes, infused with wonderful technologies, things like that. So the high school really is the last piece of the puzzle here. So when we got started, there were a lot of conversations about how it worked. Really a comprehensive high school. It was departmentalized. We had some conversations about the future of education. Is that really where the town wants to go with the high school? We talked about a lot of different educational deliveries and things like that. We ended up with basically what is still a comprehensive high school, with some unique twists on teaming of different departments and some project-based learning that we had talked about very early on, and really what was exhibited in some of the awards and discussions that happened with the students. There's a lot of clubs and a lot of wonderful things that go on at the high school, and the facilities don't necessarily support those activities and the potential for the students there. So the new high school is really intended to do that. So stepping back, we knew that we had an existing building to deal with, and we ran through a number of different scenarios. What if we tear down this part of the building, renovate this part of the building? What if we tear down the whole building? Where could we build a new building? What if we renovated the whole thing? And so we ran through cost analysis and really kind of pared it back and compared it to what the educational philosophy really needed to be and what was intended for the future. So we kind of arrived at an approach, and the general approach was that we keep all the core facilities, the auditorium, the pool, the gymnasium, the field house, because they were all big spaces, and based on state reimbursement, we really couldn't afford to rebuild those spaces. We couldn't afford to build the auditorium the size that it is right now. Couldn't build a field house. We just wouldn't get the reimbursement. So we really shifted our focus over to the educational spaces, and that's really where the solution landed. We also talked very early on about character. What did this high school want to symbolize? Because everybody kind of considered it an opportunity to create a new image. You drive by Rook Ferry Road and you kind of glance over, and it's this long, low, sprawling building. You can't really tell where the front door is. So we spent a lot of time early on in the process, in the design process, talking about what that image wanted to be and how a new building could really kind of emphasize that and support it. So we did this rendering very early on and kind of hauled it around to the RTM. We hauled it around to community events, talked to Parks and Rec and seniors and all these folks, and everybody kind of was drawn to it. They said, that building feels like it would fit in Waterford. It's a very traditional looking building. So, as we progressed with the design, we kind of held on to this, and today we're still hauling this around, and that's really what the building's going to look like when it is built. The existing building right now is really kind of on a campus. We have a lot of facilities going on around here, and even within the Civic Triangle. We have Town Hall here. We're sitting in this building. We have the Friendship School here, the Community Center over in here, the library a little farther down, and you can see, based on the aerial, just how sprawling the existing building is, which became a primary goal. We needed to condense the footprint somehow. It's really a one-story building that sprawls. We're spending a lot of energy costs. It's not a very well-insulated building. So we looked at some strategies as to how we could really compress the footprint and create some opportunities on the site within the bigger master plan, really, looking at the big picture. So what we ended up proposing was this piece of the building is the core piece with the auditorium, the pool, the gym. And then you can see how the one-story classroom wing kind of sprawls, dead ends, comes all the way back around. You know, the existing cafeteria is down this end of the building, comes all the way back. You've got the tech ed spaces and art spaces up in this area. It's a huge building, and it takes time to travel, so we spent some time talking about that. Ultimately, the site plan as it is today, and really is how it's going to be built, compresses the building to the point where this is the existing core that remains and gets fully renovated. What we end up doing is building a 3-story classroom wing on the east side of those core spaces right now, where the buses actually loop around, and the upper student parking lot is on the east side. And then once we build that 3-story classroom wing, we meet the need of all new academic spaces. It's real, I'll run through all the floor plans. But what it does is it frees up a tremendous amount of space in this area of the building. It really kind of creates the separation between the Friendship School and the high school. And we spent some time talking about the age difference and different scheduling, you know, when the buses come into Friendship School, how does that work? The intersection out here at Road Ferry Road, we spent a lot of time in front of the RTM, in front of planning and zoning, talking about traffic patterns, traffic backups, and things like that. But ultimately, what we ended up doing was connecting this 3-story classroom wing with a bridge at the second floor, which actually comes into the balcony of the auditorium and main lobby. We reworked the parking in front a little bit, essentially left the upper student parking lot to the east, and then we reconfigured the spaces, some parking that would help accommodate some of the overcrowding that currently exists at the Friendship School, and really become shared parking for the high school and Friendship School, really overflow parking for events, big events that happen at either of the facilities. And then down to the south, we have all of the athletic fields. We have the existing track is oriented a little bit differently than the new track, which is here. We have a practice field. The existing baseball field is in this location. The big move, and it was actually a separate part that the RTM considered and eventually approved, was a secondary access all the way out to Minor Lane. So this road will be a new road. It was really a result of some of the conversations that we had as far as traffic patterns on Road Ferry, getting buses in and out, teachers, student drivers, parents dropping students off, really became traffic patterns. So the solution in what's going to be built right now is the buses end up dropping on the east side of the building. We take advantage of the existing upper student parking lot. That really becomes a bus lane. We've redesigned that parking lot for a dedicated bus lane. So for the most part, faculty will arrive first thing in the morning. They will park up here and funnel directly into the 3-story classroom wing where most of the teachers are located. And then students begin to arrive. Parents that are bringing students, dropping them off, will come essentially in through the Road Ferry Road, loop around, and we've lengthened the stacking zone, and we've created a new entry on the west side of the big lobby shared between the field house and the auditorium. So this will be a parent drop-off. The students will walk directly into that lobby, and then the parents will loop right back out. Any visitors that are coming will park in the visitor lot and come directly into the front part of the building where the main admin is located. And then student parking occurs in all of these lots down over in this side, so any students that are driving. So we've begun to separate the different forms of transportation. The buses are separated from cars that are arriving simultaneously. So the building begins to function a lot better operationally early in the morning and at dismissal in the afternoon. Minor Lane is intended to handle a lot of the bus traffic, to get some of the buses. Since all the buses are on the east side of the building, most of the buses that are going to be heading east to drop off students will loop all the way out this way and then come back out to Road Ferry Road, the signalized intersection at Road Ferry Road. And we will have a couple of buses that will loop, come back down here, and then head back to the west. a much smaller amount of buses. Now, the three-story classroom wing, we get into the ground floor plan. What you can see is all of the existing spaces. We're renovating the existing gymnasium, the existing auditorium, the existing band room. This is the lobby that I was talking about, which really becomes a new entry for student drop-off early in the morning, as well as a place for students to get picked up in the afternoon, because most of your after-school activities are occurring, the drama, any of the athletics, you've got the locker rooms in here. So any after-school activities are for the most part, cordoned over here. So parents can loop and students can come directly out on the west side and then loop back out. So full renovations here. We have the pool down at the far south end of that core building. Full renovations, and we can get into some more detail. We could spend hours going through the detail of the renovations. But the new three-story classroom wing, in the very front part, I mentioned that visitors will park to the north side, come directly in the front door. So you have your main admin, guidance, the nurse is all at the front part of the building here. We have a brand new media center, north-facing, which we think is going to have some wonderful light. And then down this wing is essentially tech ed spaces. And down at the end here, we have a new cafeteria with a kitchen, and we've created a loading zone down at the south end of the building. So all the deliveries for the school will come into a new loading dock that's centralized to this end of the building. Deliveries for food and any supplies for the cafeteria will come in down that end, as well as some of the programs. We had talked about some of the construction lab programs and things like that. They get deliveries of wood on a fairly regular basis, and all that will be cordoned off and really kind of zoned to that part of the building. Working up to the second level of the three-story wing, it's really kind of the middle of the sandwich. The finished floor elevations work out so that it actually lines up with a balcony at the auditorium, and we've created a new pedestrian passage that comes across at the second floor. And when you get to the east side of the building, you're actually at grade at the upper student parking lot. So that's where all the buses will come in. So the buses will stack along this side of the building, and in the morning, students will come directly in this door. And so they're at the middle level, and they either go one level up, one level down, depending on wherever their homeroom is, first class in the morning. We have an administrative suite in this area, which then controls that entrance early in the morning and during dismissal in the afternoon. And on this floor, we basically have, we begin to pair up some of the departments that we had talked about early on educationally. So you have English and social studies kind of paired up. We have some special ed classes sprinkled in through here. And then the blue areas that you see here are faculty rooms. So this was a fairly highly debated or hotly debated topic. We really didn't want teachers to own the classroom. So we have created these administrative suites, so teacher suites, faculty rooms, where each teacher has their own desk and storage space within a more professional environment. And then when it's time to go teach class, they pick up and they go to a classroom. Scheduling-wise, it gives them a lot more flexibility, and ultimately we're actually able to delete, I think, reduce the size of the classroom by about 6 classrooms, I think, because we went through the scheduling exercise. We realized that the utilization rate of a lot of those classrooms were just sitting empty during the day. So that's a big move as far as the structure and operational aspect of the new high school. Let's see. Going up to the third level, we have paired up the math and science department on the upper level. And we heard a lot about the science program. I'm sure the labs are functioning and they're doing okay in there. But these are going to be state-of-the-art labs. The science labs have grown in size a little bit. We've begun to accommodate prep rooms and storage areas that now we are completely confident that they meet code, they're safe, and operational. I think they're going to give them a lot of flexibility for any of the sciences, teaching chemistry, biology, general sciences, And we spent a lot of time talking with all the department heads and kind of going through, talking about how the classroom's laid out and things like that, which was kind of, I think, the strongest outcome of the whole aspect. And then, actually, I'll just end on this. I'll turn it over to Gus. But once again, this is another rendering that we get dragged around to all these different meetings. And this is the view of the school from the upper parking lot, the general area where the buses would pick up in the morning, or drop off in the morning, pick up in the afternoon. So I think at this point, I'll turn it over to Gus. He has some construction issues to talk about and some phasing things for the next few years. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Gus Cotate. I'm the project manager for Olympic Industries. This is a copy of our phasing plan. I know that Mr. Architect gave you his beautiful idea, but we have to see how we're going to be able to put it all together safely.
Thanks, guys. How you doing?
What we've done, we've divided our site phasing plan into 5 phases. We started the first phase on January 20th was the mobilization date. And our first phase is basically going to, well, let me back up a little bit. A few important dates that you should know about is the addition. We're planning on a turnover date of December of 2012. Which is the T shape that Jim talked about, the L shape. And once that's complete, we're going to move the students into the new building and start the demolition of the old building. So going back, our first phase, which we started with building Minor Lane right here, and we started last week working on our temporary parking lot. Which we're going to build in order to occupy the upper parking lot and start the geothermal field. Once we've got that completed, what we're going to do is start fencing for the addition. Hopefully we'll start that mid-March. And the buses will build a temporary bus loop for the buses and the parent drop-off right here. So, here our second phase. We'll have the prep work done. The buses will be going around. Parents drop off. We're also going to be working on the football field at the same time. And we'll have the geothermal activity going on up here. Phase 3 is going to be a summer phase for our site work that will start the summer of 2012. And it will consist of working on the upper parking lot, the tennis parking lot also. Right here. And by that time, we'll be ready to start fencing around the old building, and we'll start the demolition. Again, phase 4. Once the demolition is completed, we'll start working on the site work in the front of the building. And the last phase of the construction will be restoration of the fields, the baseball field, and completing all the sidewalks along the Minor Lane access. So the entire project duration The project will end in the spring of 2014. It's a pretty long project. The demolition of the existing building will take about 6 months. The new building is about, we're figuring about 20 months for the addition. The other thing I wanted to show you was the renovation phasing plan. Our first summer, the summer of 2011, we're going to do a complete asbestos abatement of the floors of the building. And we're also going to work on renovating the field house and the swimming pool. The summer of 2012 will be the renovation of the auditorium. And the summer of 2013 will be the renovation of the auxiliary gym and the music hall. The lobby is the summer of 2012 also. The lobby will be the auditorium, and the summer of 2012 will be the lobby and the auditorium. So we started about a month ago. The schedule, we're still aiming to start the addition mid-March, and things are looking pretty good. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, can I look at phase 2 again for a second? And you said phase 2 would be starting about March? March of...
The phases are, they're a little staggered. Yeah. So we could still be working on phase 1 and start phase 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So
phase 2 is really the preparation before we put the fence for the addition. So which is the bus loop, the temporary fence drop off.
Right. All right. And then you're going to start working on the football field also. So the football field will not be available in the fall. How about the following fall?
The football field.
I mean, is it 2 years that it'll be out of use, or is it 1?
November 2011.
So just 1.
We're
The
hoping
baseball field, the same thing?
We're hoping to get the Thanksgiving gig in there.
Okay.
Right, Gus?
Yes. The baseball field, we won't touch that until the last phase, until phase 5.
And that's, the track is at the end too, correct?
The track, yes. Yeah,
The football field will be in
The football
place.
field will be ready in November, but not the track.
The track will be eliminated entirely for
the
two
base.
full seasons?
Yes. But we cannot complete the track until the building is
Right.
Yeah, the biggest benefit to the football field and track really is the synthetic surface, and that was a big thing. That football field really only gets used in the fall, essentially. But now with a synthetic surface, we're really going to be able to use it 3 out of the 4 seasons a year, which is a huge benefit schedule-wise. Now we can utilize some of the fields down in the southeast corner a little differently. Ultimately, right now some of them are game fields. We'll be able to schedule and move some of those games up to better fields and essentially use the fields down in the southeast corner for practice only, which I think rezones the whole athletic component much differently, and I think it's going to work a lot better.
One other related, the existing track is an odd configuration. It's very narrow and long. It's not really regulation, but we're reconfiguring that to a more
8-lane would be
8-lane and more wider turn and
much wider.
shorter straightaway.
8-lane, what they call
Now, what wider
track.
field will accommodate a full-size soccer field as well?
Full-size
right?
soccer.
And the cross and field house. Be a nice multi-use space.
Kathleen?
Just very quickly, with the geothermal drilling, is that all in one area? Is that all being done up in the parking
It's
lot?
all up in the upper parking lot.
All the wells are up.
Yeah, they'll do the wells in phases. They'll take an area, drill a series of wells, come down, kind of repair, and as we went through inland wetlands, there was some concern about the potential contaminants coming out of dirt. As that drilling can be very messy, and you've seen that in some of the other projects in town. So there was a concern about the phasing of that and how it was going to be done, so that it's going to be very closely monitored. But it's all essentially in that upper student parking lot.
That's why we're creating this parking lot down below.
Because the soccer fields and the field hockey fields, they're still going to be available to use, because lots of times the football games are on the same night as we have home games for soccer and field hockey.
This field down here is going to be available. This one here is used to stockpile material. So this one will be available down here.
During the construction.
During construction.
Okay, but I mean...
It's a stage on for it.
We'll use
All
it
the
for
topsoil
TV.
that's stripped off the road is stockpiled here. The topsoil that we're stripping from here, they stockpile it here. Then they're going to screen it and reuse it.
But once everything is completed, the soccer field is still going to be available to play games on, right? And for field hockey and the baseball field. Okay.
Other questions, comments?
Very exciting. Just one other
Kevin?
question.
Yeah.
And it's a minor thing. And my kid doesn't even play football anyway, but I asked that question anyway. The roadway, is that two-way or is it just a one-way road going out to Minor Lane?
Two-way.
It is two-way.
Yeah. We had talked about operationally, you could control it to a point where you could sign it to say one way only. And that way, you could send buses out that way. But it's designed as a two-way road. So, but operationally, I think there's some flexibility. You could actually control it and sign it to say, you know what, everybody has to come in Roadbury Road Park, and then when you exit, you have to go that way. Or, it could be a matter of controlling it, saying everybody parking here has to exit this way, and everybody parking over on the other part of the site for big events has to exit on Roadbury Road. I think that's the biggest benefit to really adding that access road line. You can split half and half of the traffic, and it really it's a problem right now with events.
Is the new intersection on Minor Lane, that's not going to be controlled in any way other than, I presume, a stop sign?
There will be a stop sign. There's very little traffic on that road, but yeah, there'll be a stop sign at the end of the drive. We're doing a little bit of work down some wetland improvement down there. There's a couple of pipes and some drainage swales that run down that we talked about as we went through inland wetlands and plans.
Other questions?
Yes. So I see there's a lot of work around the tennis courts this spring. Are they still going to be accessible? Or not?
Yes. We're only going to do the parking lot of the tennis courts, and that won't come in until the summer of 2012.
Oh, great.
Okay, so this road is going to be transformed into a two-way access road, and will allow people to drive this along here and be able to park here. And use the tennis courts.
Other questions or comments? No? Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Great job. We appreciate all the work you've been doing on this. And, I know we're all really looking forward to finishing this whole thing off.
And we'll bring to you updates as we hit certain milestones.
Okay, yeah. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda consisting of the minutes from the January 19th special meeting, the January 27th regular meeting, a monthly expenditure report for December 2010, and the food service report for December 2010. The expenditure report is January 2010, sorry. And health insurance year-to-date claim summary through January 2011.
We'll place that at the table tonight.
Here, yes. Okay, so if we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
second.
We, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Okay, there's a motion and second. Is there any discussion or corrections to any of the items on the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. All right. Correspondence. You've been reading your mail?
I have been, but I have none to bring forward at this time.
Thank you. Superintendent report.
Okay, I want to start by saying this is my 9th day and we've yet to have a snowflake. So it's absolutely exciting because prior to that time, that wasn't quite the case. And I can tell you, as I left Weston on Friday the 4th at 4:30, at 4:45, I received an email from Martha Shoemaker because I had spoken to her in the morning and asked her if she could survey the staff and get a sense of how many people had planned non-refundable trips during the February break, as well as April, because we're really challenged at that time with where our calendar was. At that time, we were looking at Monday the 27th, assuming there were no snow days for the remainder of the school year as being our last day on June 27th. So there really was no time to catch your breath. And I can tell you from a first impression perspective, the just about 7 days that I spent in transition between Weston here and Waterford, the assistance of Randy as well as Craig and Michael and Joyce and the administrative team, it just really allowed me to get up to speed very quickly. So I was very grateful for those opportunities. I kidded with the high school faculty today at their meeting that usually you step into the fire before you jump into the frying pan, but I would tell you there was no opportunity to get into the fire. It was straight to the frying pan, and I can tell you that it's been a busy 9 days. We had not had a full week of school since just before the holiday break in December, and as I walked around the district on Friday, I can tell you we were all dragging. It was a whole new experience to actually have 5 days. And the impact was also significant with our kids. But I think we're back into a routine, and I think that's great. The other thing that I would say to you, you have in front of you the calendar revisions. The hope is that the weather remains balmy like the last 2 days. And our last school day is now on a Wednesday, assuming there's no additional snow, but it does give us a buffer in June, and I think that's the 22nd. Do I have that right? Right. The 22nd of June. But we do have a buffer. The staff has been spectacular. We have substitutes lined up for next week. Families have let us know of their family plans so that we can make accommodations. And as of today, I also declared at the high school staff meeting today that next week is a wellness week. What that means is we all need to be well. No one can be ill next week because we're pretty stretched. But I think we've put together a very good plan, and I greatly appreciate the support. And I think that's really my experience since I've been here is a great reception, lots of cooperation, a real sense of team, and I'm very excited about that. So that kind of hits the first two items. So what I can say is that was kind of all of day one. Day two, we actually got back to the budget, and we really needed to. And each of the days that I had been in the district, we spent a great deal of time taking a look at the financial plan for the upcoming school year, and it is indeed a challenge. And it's one that's a balancing act. And Waterford, like the rest of the 168 communities in the state, is really being pushed to continue to grow and improve, but at the same time to practice restraint. So on Tuesday, I spent half a day with the administrative team, and we took a look at the budget, and we asked ourselves the question that if we did not have wage freeze, we would need to cut $1.2 million, and what would that look like? And what I shared with the team is where I wanted to start was first from an operational perspective. Is there anything else that we can go back in and take a look at and re-examine and analyze? And I think we immediately came to the conclusion it will take a lot of $5,000 chunks, a lot of $10,000, a lot of $20,000 to reach the $1.2 million. And so we really said, let's push the limits. Let's ask ourselves some tough questions. Is there anything that we can do different? Because we really need to hold on to the integrity of the program. There are many good things about this school district, and we just don't want to compromise it. And so what I can tell you, quite frankly, that if we do need to cut $1.2 million, we are looking at changes to programs. We are looking at changes to staff across the board in every single category in order to get to that $1.2 million. And we raised a number of questions for ourselves, and I thought it'd be important to raise the questions with the board because we need some guidance to further explore a couple of things. And I actually used, Jody was at the meeting the other night with our parent liaison group, and I've had a chance to meet with the Federation, with 5 of the 6 union leaders, with teacher advisory group, the administrative team. I've been in all of the schools. I've been engaged in 3 of the 5 schools with faculty meetings, and I'll continue that again next week to really gain a perspective on things. And I need your help. Is it worth our time to look at a few items within our budget? And it's something that I've experienced as superintendent. It's things I experienced when I was back as a principal. And so in learning the Waterford system, are we at a point that we need to start to think about looking at some cooperation around some of our expenses? And so there are a number of districts, and these are hot topics, so I need your guidance on this. And I'm not looking for a vote this evening or anything, but just some guidance, because it will take some work to do. And I'd only do it if we had a general consensus that it's worth our time. But we provide a number of services and opportunities for our students and our families at no additional cost. They're funded fully within the budget. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. And what I also have to say to you is that if we were in a different time and a better time, I wouldn't even put these items on the table. But at one of our meetings, as I was sitting in the audience, I listened to, something that's special about Waterford. For our students in advanced placement courses, we pay for test taking. Would we be willing to take a look at that became 50-50? Because as we looked at the dollar amount, that's a $22,000 expenditure. And so if we did that 50-50, would we be willing to go $11,000 and $11,000? Another item, graduation. We pay for the caps and gowns. Is that something that we would want to ask our students and families? Many districts across the state of Connecticut look at pay to participate. I like to think of it as pay to participate or an activity fee versus a pay to play. Because we're not asking for all contributions. But for example, I come from a district that it was $75 a sport, but a cap of $400 to a family. And anyone who couldn't afford it, we fully funded it. So you never exclude anybody, so you set up some safety measures so that you're not minimizing the participation. We also provide agenda books. We also provide all of the supplies. Is it worth our time to look at any of those things a little bit differently? Because we need some guidance. Our goal in all of this is really to minimize the number of staffing reductions if we were to not have a wage freeze. And one of the things that I'm guided by is every $50,000 saves a professional staff member. And it also continues our programs at the level that we're currently at. And so that's the work that we've been doing over the first 2 weeks of my time here, and 2 different days in the week, and I greatly appreciate the cooperation and the involvement. And tomorrow morning, Craig and I are going to meet with the Federation, and staff have been trying to also identify some suggestions and ideas that maybe we can look at. And we're also looking at operational things. Is there anything we can do a little bit differently with our transportation in order to save a few dollars? Because again, I kind of use that magic number around $50,000, $55,000 for a staff position. So I need a little guidance.
You ready to jump in, Catherine? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I, for one, think it is worthy to take another look, and I did that spent quite some time and made a list myself today and came up with some areas that look like they might be a possibility that we could generate enough savings, because I think you hit right on when you said that we need to find creative solutions now, and we all have to get back a little. I'm really anxious about losing programs and the quality, so I would like to really take another look. If we could almost go back to the budget and look at what we actually expended 2 years ago, and then look at those areas that we've increased and see and have a dialogue about could we trim those a little more, and perhaps come up. I think we can find additional monies there so that the staffing would be less impacted, but I think it has to be equitable across the board. I think we need to look at everything and find a way not to really, I'm just anxious, as I said, about losing some of the programs that we've worked so hard. We heard from our students tonight about that particular area, and there's some others that we might want to discuss a little more at length that we've already eliminated. So I'm for one, I don't know how the board feels, but I'm interested in reviewing again.
I agree with Kathleen. I also went through the budget and I found some items that I think we should look at. But I just want to go on record saying I'm totally against pay to participate. I think, not because I had children that did play sports. I mean, they're asked to buy warm-up suits, and it does cost parents money to have their children play a sport at Waterford High School. And I just feel that, playing a sport, being in drama, being in music, it's part of the curriculum. And I think we should fund that if we could. And I would also like to see if we could put TAG back in at front line. We need a bottom line number on how much that would cost, but I really think we should go through the budget as a group more, go through it more carefully than we did.
Well, my goal would be, depending upon where we are with wage freezes, is to come back with a recommendation. The administrators have been working on that.
There's still a big question mark. I mean, we still really don't know what we have to do.
Other comments? John?
The question you asked, the answer is yes. It has to be yes. You can't say no. It's not worth looking at. Yeah, we have to look at it. I kind of agree with what Jody said. Let's see where we are with wage freezes, because that's going to be the biggest variable per se. And yes, if the administrators have recommendations that are closest to what it takes to get the job done, and bring that forward with whatever we are with wage freeze or not. And I think we should sit down and walk through the budget like we normally do, on element by element, to kind of come through that. I'll go on record too. I am against pay for participate or pay for play. I think it is fraught with all kinds of problems. I don't know if it was successful. I'd like to hear how it was successful, but we've talked about that at great length, and my bias going into that discussion is no.
Tim?
I'll just concur and go one step further and say that at this stage of the game, I would say that we shouldn't take anything off the table, including things that are particularly not our favorite items, like pay to participate or any other items. I think that we need to look at the entire realm of possibility here, and then see where we are dollar-wise, and then make some of the unpleasant decisions that maybe we're going to have to make. But I think in order to engage in this conversation, I don't think we can go in with biases and say, well, this is absolutely I think we have to have an open mind. I think we have to look at all of these and see what the lesser of the evils are, perhaps, in the end. Because if an activity fee is going to save a couple of teachers' jobs, I might be able to go for it. And it's not something that I have liked. I've coached in this league for 28 years. It is not something that I like the idea of at all. But I know that other schools have implemented it. It's not been the nightmare in some places that it could be if it's done correctly. And I just don't want to take anything off the table at this stage of the game in an effort to come to a solution there.
In looking at the particular items that you mentioned, Jerry, they're all of the form shifting costs to parents. Right? It's not eliminating total. I mean, it's not eliminating the necessity for somebody to buy pay for caps and gowns, agenda books, AP exams, etc. It's asking the parents to take over those costs. And you know, I'm showing my age, but when I was in school, of course, they didn't provide anything. We had to buy our own textbooks and no school transportation, all that kind of stuff. So I'm, in one sense, kind of inclined to say, you know, tough it up. But on the other hand, I think it's the obligation of the public at large to pay for public education, and I hate to see any shift of the cost to the particular people who happen to have kids. And so I'm not saying that no, I agree with Tim. Everything's got to be on the table. We've got to look at that. But my inclination as one member of this board is that those kinds of things would be one of the last things that I would consider. So, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you, Don, on that. That would be my sense as well. But the question is, as we're going forward, asking the teachers to look at a wage freeze, and by the way, I'd like to thank you for sharing the 50 questions. As I went through those, some of the suggestions were good, and at one point it looked like there might be some sort of a compromise in there that could say that while it wouldn't meet what we were looking for fully, it looked like it would meet on one of the questions a good portion of it. And then if we looked at all the other facets, perhaps we could reach that 1.2 million so that the burden would be shifted, would be more equitable throughout. I don't know. And then my other question, if I may, have the other unions been approached at this point?
All unions have, yes.
Okay, but we have no response from
We have a
anyone,
response from the administrators, and they have agreed
they
to a
did.
wage
That's
freeze.
right. And that's the only one.
That is at this time.
Okay.
One question. When are we expecting answers from the rest of the unions?
Well, that's going to be a conversation I'm going to have tomorrow. We really need to know early in March where we are. We're going to the Board of Finance on March 18th. We can't be presenting a budget that's on a false assumption. We need to know where we stand early in March, so it gives us some lead time. The other thing that we have is we have a statutory requirement in regards to the reduction of staff. If we're looking at reducing staff, we need to make that decision and come to the board so that you take action by the end of March. So that would be at our March board meeting. And so that's a critical factor. So time is of the essence. That's why we began on my second day here. We just have to get to it and have the conversation. And the Federation's been great. We're going to be meeting tomorrow to talk through some of the suggestions and ideas that they have. And so they're listening in to some of my conversation with them for tomorrow, but we need to have an answer soon after the vacation time where we stand. It's not so much a vacation anymore, but by the end of what used to be a February break.
Sherry, you want to follow up?
My other comment is that, of course, we should be talking about everything and going through the budget in detail, and we didn't do that this year, so I think it would be a good exercise. But as you mentioned, a lot of what we would do is cut 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. It's not going to get to the 1.2 million. So we really need to be aggressive, I think, with dealing with the health insurance costs, because that's what's killing us. But I also think our budget is at 2.9% increase. Is that correct?
2.99.
2.99. And I honestly think we need to bring it down to less than that. And I know that would be even harder to do than getting to where we are right now. But we have people that are out there that don't have jobs. And we're increasing our budget at 2.99%, which is almost our max, because we can go up to 3%. I think it would be diligent for us to try to bring it to a smaller increase if we could do that. I just think it would be, it would show good faith and a good effort on our part.
I guess I could say I understand that point. However, I'm going to throw the however in there. We have been very diligent on the budget for the last several years on keeping our costs down as much as we can. The cost increases that we're facing now are not by our own makings. It's really because of the insurance costs. We have done everything we possibly can, and I understand the situation we are in. But I don't want to get to the point where we start sacrificing programs because we're trying to make ourselves look a little better for the public. I think we still have the obligation to put the best education that we can for our students. And I think that we're pushing that line a little bit too far now. I think we've pushed to the point where we're asking to make sacrifices, and I really would hope that the Board of Finance watch this tape when it's on TV. But I think we're at the point right now that we are pushing our finances to the point that we're asking the kids to make sacrifices for their future. And I'm not happy about that. And I understand the situation we're in. I'm in the same situation at home, just like everybody else is. I mean, I've took a big hit in the last 3 years. But I don't necessarily want our kids to have to pay for that. And I want to do everything we can to keep the programs that we do have in force. And there are a lot of programs I'd like to see added. I'd like to see more languages, but that's just not possible right now. But we need to keep things moving forward as far as the education is concerned. And as far as the other thing, Jerry, I do think that we have to put everything on the table, yes. As far as the pay to participate, I think this came up last year when we talked about freshman sports. And it's not, and I think it's important for us all to understand, it's not something that's going to actually pay for the cost. It's just something to help offset some of the cost.
It's minimal.
Because it will never pay.
No, it's minimal.
Just, Mike, help me out maybe on this. We say 2.99%. That's an increase below, an increase to an artificially reduced budget because we lowered the budget last year with the furlough days. There were the grants that weren't going to be there this year. So it's 2.99 on what was last year's budget, right? And that was I call it an artificially reduced, but it was reduced for special reasons. So I'm not sure that it's really a 2.99 if we didn't take that little dip. So I'm not sure what that number really is. So it's not a fair comparison. So maybe we should have that, understand really what that number is if we didn't take the dip and then try and come back up and backfill, come back up to a norm.
Right.
So,
Other comments, questions? Alan, you were about to say something.
Just in relationship to what Jerry said earlier, and while I'm relatively certain that the Board of Education the Board of Finance would appreciate any decrease in any of the budgets that come before us over the next 4 weeks or so. Specifically related to, you mentioned AP exams and such. You may want to talk to Jim Lombardo in East Lyme. I have it on relatively good authority that they got in trouble a couple of years ago because they were charging for all of that, and it was interpreted by the state of Connecticut that if you offer that as an educational program, that all of the associated costs have to go in with that. So I don't know if you're allowed by the state.
With advanced placement exams, yeah. Kids can charge. Some districts...
I think East Lyme got hit with a back charge on that a few years ago. You may want to check with the guidance department or with Jim.
I think to some extent it depends on whether you require that exam and use it as a basis for the final grade in the course. I believe that it's, as long as it's entirely optional and has no impact on the grade they get in the course, it can be viewed as, if they want to spend the money and hope they get some college credit. I mean, I think that's. I don't like it. I mean, I'm not advocating that, but I think that it would not be a legal problem. Jody.
Don, didn't we have students pay before?
Yes.
And this is something new that we just.
Yes, and Don is correct.
So let me try to summarize what I think I heard. I didn't hear, no, don't look at it. But at the same time, what I did hear is that may not be the highest on the list. And for some, it's absolutely not on the list. But in a general sense, we really need to look at a variety of options. And I think what we all have to understand is that unless there's a wage freeze of some sort, 1.2 million is a significant number of dollars. And a couple of the suggestions that I just mentioned aren't getting us to 1.2, but it's part of the 1.2 so that it doesn't turn out to be 100% staff and the elimination of programs. And so before, we've put quite a bit of time and energy into this, but before we go to the next step, to be prepared for what we might have to do, I really needed your guidance tonight to say, you need to continue to look at it, bring it back forward. Once we know where we stand with wage freezes, it will certainly give us a direction as to how far we need to go.
I think that's a pretty good summary of what we said.
You said that we'd be meeting tomorrow. Would it be possible then, as soon as we know where we stand, I think, so we have enough time,
Sure.
because if it's the end of March by statutory guidelines, that I would like to just keep open that maybe we could meet as a board for a special meeting.
We may do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we will definitely make sure that we
Only because
we
it
do
may
that.
require enough discussion.
I just had a statement, kind of. I'm actually a graduate from Montfort. I graduated 4 years ago. I'm only here for a class, but the programs at Waterford are absolutely amazing. I'm an early childhood major, and the classes offered at the high school prepared me. I skipped a lot of classes when I went to Three Rivers and Eastern, where I am now, just because of the information that we got there. So just listening to hear about the budgets and stuff, I would absolutely not. I mean, that's one of the benefits that we have at Waterford. A lot of the programs are not at the other schools. People look at me class, you took what in high school? And I'm like, yeah. And, I mean, they transferred all the way up to Eastern, my physics class that I took sophomore year. And I mean, I don't have to take it at Eastern. It's a benefit, and I know that money is an issue everywhere, but those programs are, I mean, they stay with you for life, and they're worth a lot, for the students to take them. They benefit at a young age, and the programs, I think, are really special, and that's something that shouldn't be cut back.
Michael?
In answering John's question, we're actually falling behind in the sense that our proposed budget is $1.2 million increase, and yet our health insurance is 1.6. So we are actually eroding our existing budget.
And then on top of that, our contractual obligations are $1.1 million. And then on top of that are increases to pension funds and FICA and Medicare. And on top of that is increases to fuel. So you're talking about quite a bit. And that's what we've been going through. So a 3% increase to the budget is great. But the health insurance alone is a 4% increase. The contractual obligations are just under 3% on top of that. So that's why we're where we're at. Okay,
I think we can move on. Committee and other reports. Jody, tell us something interesting and exciting.
Well, I don't have the school building committee report. We had a youth service bureau meeting, and our biggest thing right now is Dancing with the Stars, and it's on March 25th. I emailed everybody to see if you need tickets. Joyce can also get tickets. March 25th at 7 o'clock at Waterford High School in the field house. And I think it's really going to be a lot of fun. And the Waterford Standard, I brought the Waterford Standard for a different reason tonight. In the middle of it, they have an ad. I don't know if we've all seen it, but there's an ad for it. And Pat Fedor is one of the dancers. One of the times, I'm sorry.
I like the cover.
I do too. Jerry's on the cover. But anyway, we have some teachers: Mark Higgins and Kelly Barnes from Clark Lane, Audrey Montanero from Clark Lane, Aaron Eccleston, who is Youth Service Bureau coordinator, we have a lot of police officers. Jay Miner's going to be one of the judges. Mike's going to be one of the judges. Michael Vettri's going to be one of the judges. I think it's really going to be a nice night. It doesn't cost anything. It's going to be a great family night that the Youth Service Bureau is sponsoring, which I think is wonderful. They're a really great organization. There's just something else I wanted to let everybody know about. Justin Barzak is taking part in the MDA Muscle Walk, and it's at Mohegan Sun. It's on Saturday, March 12th at 10 a.m. And Justin just wanted us to know that they formed a team in the Muscle Walk because we want to do something meaningful this year. These are high school students. We chose MDA because of all the tremendous things they do for our team captain, Justin Barzak, and the families they serve. I hope you'll do the same. Make your muscles work for something good. Please join our team or make a secure donation to MDA. And I'll ask Joyce if she can make copies and put this in our packet, our Friday packet. All the programs that I mentioned last month, that's what they're still doing. They're going to have a trip to a Yankees game this year instead of the Red Sox, which I'm upset about. But anyway, that's in July. More information will be coming about that. I guess that's pretty much it. I don't know if Jerry would like to give a report on the Parents Liaison Council. Jerry attended it this month. It was his first meeting.
Last night?
Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday night, I had the opportunity to have parent representatives from each of the schools. And we had some of the same conversation that we had tonight in regards to budget and looking at maybe sharing in some of the costs. And I think the more and more we talked through it, parents understood the circumstance that we're in. And again, would hope that we wouldn't have to get to that point, but also understood it. I thought we had some good sharing. We really kind of articulated our purpose, and that was to have good communication across the various schools, try to come up with a common calendar, to also get accurate information back to parents. So I thought it was a great meeting and well attended. We had every school represented.
Other committee reports?
Just a reminder, not a report, that the Waterford Education Foundation will have its spelling bee on March 30th. And I know, Pat, you're in a lot of activities. Hope you won't be too tired from dancing.
I'm a better speller than I am a dancer.
We are still seeking sponsors, and I know the Board of Ed participated one year. If anyone wants to join in again, maybe we can find a sponsor. So thank you.
Any other reports?
I just had a quick one that I would have done under my report. You probably noticed all the beautiful artwork out in the corridors. Both Rhonda and Dave Weber came over the other day with all the student art. I'm just amazed by it. It's terrific.
I just have one other, recognition that I wanted to make sure that the board knows about. Don Kincasia was at our Youth Service Bureau meeting the other evening, and he ran a program at Clark Lane called Play by the Rules. And I just wanted to thank Don and also Mike Lavetri and Craig Powers, because they were instrumental in getting this program going. And they had 20 children participate, and the theme was making good choices. And Mike, Craig, did you want to say a little bit more about it? Or? Okay. Well, anyway, I thought they did a great job.
Just a brief follow-up with Jody on the school building committee. As you saw, the plans are coming along, and we're very excited about the possibility of the groundbreaking coming up in mid-March. Shovels are ready. We have been awarding contracts for bids. We're about 20 contracts in, I think, at this point. And at the moment, we're a little over $5 million under budget. So we're really pleased about that. The bids are coming in fast, furious, and low, and we are being diligent with the use of the town's money. But we are looking at all of the aspects, all of the alternates that are going out there, and being very careful with the spending of the town's money for this what will be a beautiful new high school.
Another report. I can mention one thing. I attended a CAPE Convention Planning Committee. I know it's not till November, but the requests for submission of student artwork and student performance groups will be going out shortly. And as usual, I would like to encourage teachers and administrators to consider either or both of those submissions for the convention, especially since it's just up the road in Mystic and it is easy, relatively easy for some of our students to attend. Okay. Any other? Okay, if there are no other reports, we'll move on to new business. The first item is the second reading of the policy in the 4000 series 4117.1, 4217.1, the policy on recognition upon retirement or resignation. We had the first reading on this last meeting, so it is ready for action at this meeting. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on this policy? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? We have a first reading of another policy on discrimination and sexual harassment, 5145.5. This is a first reading, so no action will be taken tonight, but comments and suggestions for changes, if any, are in order. So is there any discussion on this policy? Kathleen?
I have so many policies in front of me from our last meeting that I don't see in front of me, but just for the board, that this policy came in front of the policy committee last month, and the piece on the regulations, which identifies all of the different agencies that are useful for someone who may have encountered sexual harassment, was added, which is a great benefit. It's something we did not have in the past, so I think this will help strengthen not only the policy, but the regulations are much better.
Other comments on the policy? Jody?
I was a little confused when it said that as soon as a student feels that he or she has been subjected to sex discrimination or sexual harassment, he or she should make a written complaint to the building principal or his or her designee. Now, if it happens to a middle school student or someone younger, how would they go about doing that? Shouldn't the parents be brought in immediately?
The question that was brought up at the policy committee, and I think if the child was unable, they were going to be guided by the person that would help write it out. If they were a younger child and they couldn't, they would be facilitated.
Okay, but if it happened to a student in school by another student, shouldn't the parents be notified immediately?
Yeah, correct.
So, Jody, if it happens and it's reported, that's one thing. If a child is too afraid to come forward, that's, if they write a note, send it to administration, then that can be investigated. In all cases, when it's notified to the administration, parents will be notified. It's just multiple ways to get the problem, if you will, to an adult.
How do we let the students know about that? How do we explain the different types of harassments and things like that? Especially to middle school students and high schoolers.
Could I? Yeah, sure. I can speak to that. In the beginning of the year, Lynn and I, assistant principal, and I, we do assemblies for all of the teams, and we go over. Generally the things in the handbook, but we specifically pay attention to, any type of harassment, any type of, bullying type of thing. So it's covered in a sometimes for sixth graders it lasts 2 hours, believe it or not, where they could have so many questions, and obviously as the kids get older, we can refine a little bit, but that's how we get our point across. We also usually redo it in March because as kids get a little older, sometimes they forget things. So we usually do we'll call it a tune-up in March.
How do you feel about it at the high school?
We have meetings at the beginning of the year, and we make kids aware of all of those things as well. And if there are incidences during the course of the year, you can rest assured that those students and their parents and anyone else connected is made fully aware of the consequences.
Thank you.
Other comments on the proposed policy?
Can I just ask a question? It's really if the student, whoever they feel comfortable with bringing it. I mean, it's going to come to the principal, but I mean, they understand that they can come to.
No, they can.
Anybody that.
They can go to anybody. They can go to a PE teacher. They can go to a custodian. They can go to someone in the cafeteria. Ultimately, it will reach the administration, and then we'll follow the procedure.
Because I imagine some students would rather talk to.
Oftentimes, it will come from a buddy, contemporary.
Okay. Any other questions or clarification? If not, as I said, this is a first reading. We'll take it up for a second reading at our next regular meeting. Okay. Next item.
We do have a
Jerry would like to discuss with us some details or positions and policies regarding collective bargaining, in particular the request for wage freezes, and that's negotiating strategy, which is definitely subject to executive session. So a motion to go into executive session in order with invite Mr. Belair and Craig Powers. Okay.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?